So a couple days ago, I redrafted the 2024 NBA draft, and y'all seemed to enjoy that video. So I decided I'm going to come back here. We're going to redraft 2023, and then in a few days, we'll do 2022, and so on and so forth, probably through about 2019, 2018, somewhere around there. We're going to go through the last several drafts and redraft the lottery based on the way that things have changed through people's NBA careers. Before we hop into it, if y'all haven't already, make sure you hit that that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 1K on the channel, trying to get this channel monetized. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe, especially if you're new to the channel. And without further ado, let's hop right into it. The number one overall pick was obviously held by the San Antonio Spurs, and I think it is obviously an absolute no-brainer as to what they would do with that pick even today, and nothing would change. I don't think this one is one we really have to spend much time on. Wemby is a generational prospect, is already a generational player, probably the best defensive player in the sport already, and incredibly gifted and talented offensively, especially at his size. This is an absolute no-brainer. It's not even close. Wemby would be, without a doubt, the number one overall pick still in a redraft today. And honestly, I feel like the number two pick is kind of the same. Now, when you look at these rosters, this website Fanspo is cool because it lets me go back and do mock drafts from previous drafts, but the rosters aren't accurate anymore. For example, Kelly Oubre, not a Hornet. Terry Rozier, not a Hornet. Dennis Smith Jr., not a Hornet. Gordon Hayward, not a Hornet. Like a lot of these guys, PJ Washington, Kai Jones, etc., are not Hornets anymore. So the roster itself is not accurate anymore, but the Hornets' needs would still be similar today. You know what I mean? Like, I think they would still take Brandon Miller with how good he has been and how he is already probably the second best player on the team. Super duper versatile, high level skill set, who I think pairs really, really well next to LaMelo Ball. The Hornets are still bad and they have some roster issues, but Brandon Miller was not a bad pick at all. And I still think he's probably the second best player of the draft, at least to this point. So we'll put him at number two. Now, number three, the Portland Trailblazers. This is the first pick where things change, because originally Scoot Henderson was that pick. And honestly, I was in favor of the Scoot Henderson pick at the time. I thought he was going to develop into a great player, but unfortunately, that just quite simply has not happened. Now, we're early in his second season. You don't want to overreact too much, but his numbers are very, very similar. He's shooting about the same from the three. Yes, he's shooting better from the field, which is good, but he's still not efficient enough from inside the arc. Assist to turnover ratio is down slightly, but it's still not great. And his scoring overall is down a bit, despite playing, I guess, 2 minutes less a game this season. He just has not been great at all. And I don't feel like he's showing quite the promise that people were hoping he would. Now, I haven't given up on him being a solid NBA player, but I don't think he would go number three in a redraft. And honestly, this is a tough spot. This is the first one to me where I'm just like, not totally sure what these teams would do. But for some reason, the guy who feels like the right pick to me is Amen Thompson. And he is so impactful defensively. He is so athletic. He is such a capable finisher as a rim runner, a roller, off the ball, on the ball, whatever it is. I know the jumper is not taking, to this point, great steps, but I do think it's looked a little better this season, and I do think he will eventually round into a decent shooter. Now, I know he's only 30% from three this season, but he was literally 14% last year, which is historically bad, like unplayably terribly bad, no matter how good everything else he does is. But this year, he's done a lot of things really well. He's not really a point guard, and that would make this Blazers roster a little weird. But I think he's the best player in this draft right now, and I do think he, besides obviously Wemby and Brandon Miller. Now that's a bold statement, I get it, but I really like Amen Thompson a lot. I feel like he'd go three. At number four, that leaves the Rockets with a decision, because if the Rockets were redrafting today and had the opportunity to pick Amen Thompson, I have no doubt they would do that again. But now at number four, it's a much tougher spot. And I think there's a few guys who fulfill a relatively similar skill set to the Rockets who would still be really, really useful players. If this was before the season, I would lean a guy like Brandon Podziemski. The reason that he is not going to be this pick, though, and may not even, I mean, he's probably still going to be in this lottery, but not super high up in it, is because of the amount of struggles that he has had on the offensive end this season. And I just don't think there's anybody in here who absolutely jumps off the page at me as like a great choice at number four, besides Bilal Coulibaly. The reason I say Bilal, he is shooting really well this season, and he's playing amazing defense as well for the Wizards, and his off the dribble game has improved pretty immensely to this point in the year. The efficiency from three still isn't amazing, but I do think that will go up a bit as his career progresses. I think he'll be a solid, like average three-point shooter, a hyperactive, highly athletic defender who is a capable playmaker and a very capable scorer off the dribble as well. It's been really nice to see his offensive game develop this year, shooting 8 percentage points better from inside the three-point line this season. And I think he's playing really good basketball. And look, it may feel a little high to take a guy who's on a bad team in the Wizards at number four, but looking at the guys left in this draft, he feels like the right pick to me. I really think he would fulfill a similar skill set, different in some ways, but definitely similar defensive ability to a guy like Amen Thompson, and definitely a different skill set. Number 5, the Pistons originally took Asar Thompson. And I'll be totally honest, I don't totally despise that pick still. I know he hasn't played at all this year, but I actually think his skill set is really, really promising if his jumper develops. Kind of similarly to, honestly, Amen. And even more so, honestly, where he does everything well. I know he's only played 2 games this season. He just started his second season. So I'm not super concerned to this point by the fact that his numbers are terrible in his first 2 games. I still would have a hard time picking him here, though. I know the versatility is really good. He's a great rebounding guard. He's a really good impactful defender as well. But honestly, this may be a little bit of an interesting pick. Grady Dick feels like the choice right here. As crazy as that is to say, and that would not have been the pick before the NBA season at all, but the development that he has shown on the offensive end of the court for the Raptors has been really impressive. And let's remember, elite level, well, I guess the numbers aren't quite as elite as you'd expect, but a very, very good shooter on pretty high volume. I know his 3-point percentage isn't great this year, but he shot 36.5% as a rookie. That's likely to increase a bit as his career progresses. And in a much bigger role on a team that admittedly is pretty bad, and where he's had, I would say on a lot of nights, the number 1 offensive responsibility. Him being this good this quickly is not something I expected on the offensive end of the court. And yes, you do have to keep in mind he's on a bad team, but I don't think they're going to be empty numbers. And I think his shooting ability and his overall versatility skill set wise would fit really well with a Pistons team that still could use some really high level perimeter shooting. And I know that's probably a weird pick at number 5, but I really like Grady Dick. I don't know. Number 6, the Orlando Magic originally took Anthony Black. And I'm looking at this draft board, and I kind of think they might still take Anthony Black, to be completely honest. He's been really, really good this year, has shown some serious signs of growth. The impressive thing about Anthony Black is that his shooting ability is much, much better than I think people anticipated that it would be. Especially, I mean, as a rookie, he was almost 40%. Now, it's lower this year on higher attempts per game, only 28.5%. But if he could get closer to that mark, he's not going to be a 40% three-point shooter for his career. There's absolutely no way. But he has shown the potential to be a competent three-point shooter. And with how good he is defensively as well, how capable he is as a playmaker, a 2-to-1 pretty much assist to turnover ratio, which is very solid as well. And again, a bigger role this season on a good competitive team, and a guy who I think can actually play valuable minutes on a good competitive team. Again, it's a little bit of an odd choice at number 6, but I don't know. I feel like they would probably stick with their guns with Anthony Black. I like what I've seen at him. Number 7, the Washington Wizards originally took Bilal Coulibaly. He's obviously not available anymore at this point in the draft. At this point, I have no reason to believe they wouldn't take Derek Lively if they could go back and do it again, because here's the honest truth, y'all. Derek Lively is better right now than Alex Sarr is. Derek Lively, I think, has probably feels likely to me to be a better player than Alex Sarr throughout their careers. Now, that could change, but Sarr has been really, really bad offensively. And Lively would just shore up that center position at such a high level that I think they would really be, it's one of those things where they could just forget about the center position for the next 10 years, because Derek Lively is going to hold it down at a super high level, provide that rim protector anchor, high effort, high energy, fast, athletic defensive big who's going to rebound, dunk the ball, finish with force, and has shown, I mean, very, very small signs, yes, but signs of potentially adding an outside game at some point in his career. I like Derek Lively at 7. I think the Wizards would be happy to see him fall to 7 if we were going back in time. Number 8, the Indiana Pacers took, I believe originally they got Jarris Walker. Now, in this situation, would they still take Jarris Walker? Probably not. Now, I actually think he was really good as a rookie last year. And honestly, this year so far has also been pretty good. I know he's not playing a ton of minutes, but the efficiency is pretty good. He's a career 38.5% three-point shooter, but not like a super high volume player on the offensive or defensive end of the court. Not super efficient inside the inside the three-point line. He's not like a great I mean, he's a physical guy, but he's not like an elite level driver. This is one of those spots that's tough because I'd like to say Asar, but the shooting scares me. Jarris is a really solid player. I would have honestly even considered a guy like Taylor Hendricks, but I don't think he makes a ton of sense here either. Ben Mathurin is like a 2-3 combo type of option where I don't know, man. This is a tough roster. This is a really tough roster to figure out what the right choice would be. And so, you know what? I think I'm going to pick Podziemski because 6'4", 6'5", he's listed 6'6", he's not 6'6", but I think he's closer to 6'5", a guy who, yes, he's had a really rough start to his second season, but I think is still a very talented player. I do believe he will figure it out and overcome some of the struggles that he's had so far this year. He was incredible as a rookie, And I think he's a guy who could be the 2 next to Halliburton, could come off the bench as a combo guard 1 or 2 if they wanted to start Mathurin still. A lot of versatility to this lineup. They could start Mathurin at the 3 with Podziemski at the 2 and bring Nesmith off the bench. Like, this would give the Pacers a lot of lineup versatility, and I think Podziemski's still going to be a really good player. So I'm going to lean him at number 8 for right now, despite some of the struggles so far this year in his second year. Number 9, the Utah Jazz originally took, my brain is farting. Okay, Taylor Hendricks, obviously. By the way, big prayers up to Taylor Hendricks. His leg injury is really unfortunate, and I hope he is able to get things figured out there. This is going to be an interesting pick because I am not a Scoot Henderson guy at this point. And yet, a player with his athletic ability and his skill set, I know the efficiency hasn't been there at all, and the defense hasn't really been either. But the Jazz could use a long-term point guard. And Scoot Henderson is the only guy in the draft who I think really gives you that skill set. Cason Wallace is a very good player, but he's not a true PG in the same way. And I would just have a really hard time not arguing Scoot Henderson as the guy with the highest potential still to play that point guard position. I know the shooting hasn't been where you want it to be in either his rookie year or his second year. You'd like to see him finish better at the rim, especially with how athletic he is. But the assist turnover ratio isn't great, but it's not horrifically awful. Hopefully some of that stuff can be improved upon. I think he still has the potential to where taking a guy who has the potential to be a really good PG for a team that is very bad and has the ability to develop the talent over time. I'm going to pick Scoot Henderson. As much as I don't love the guy as a player so far in his career, I still think the Jazz would bet on the upside. Number 10, the Oklahoma City Thunder originally traded down. No, I'm sorry. I think they traded up to 10. The Mavs traded down to 12. That's what happened. But the Thunder originally took Cason Wallace, and who am I to tell the Thunder to pick somebody else? Because Cason Wallace has been really good for them. He is an impact rotation guy on one of the best teams in the league. I would have no issues whatsoever with them still taking him. His defensive ability is really good. I trust the Thunder's draft picks more than almost any team in the NBA, and Cason Wallace has been a really good player. No need to break what is already not broken. So very pleased with the Thunder's drafting. I think Cason Wallace there would still be totally fine. Number 11 was originally, who was 11 originally? Oh yes, Jet Howard from Michigan. Jet Howard hasn't done much for this for the Magic, in all honesty. I think they'd rather have Jarris Walker. Cam Whitmore would be an option here as well, but he's had such a rough start to his second season. Cannot buy a freaking bucket. It is totally out of the rotation in Houston. Maybe you bet on the upside with a guy like Cam Whitmore still, because he is only 20, but the shooting just has been god awful, atrocious, horrific so far this season. Now, it wasn't horrible last year, but the efficiency still wasn't amazing. And he's not like a super impactful defender. He's just freakishly athletic. I think Jarris Walker, guy who's a competent shooter, skilled player on the outside, would probably make sense here at number 11. I feel like the Magic wouldn't be mad about snagging Jarris instead of Jet Howard at this point in the draft. And then at number 12, the Dallas Mavericks would be crushed to not have the opportunity to pick Derek Lively. I can tell you right now, if I was a Mavs fan, that one would hurt. But I think the Mavs would probably take, and I know they have PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, some guys like that. If we're going back in time and assuming they don't already have those players in this situation, knowing what we know now in terms of the player talent, Jaime Jaquez feels like the right choice. A guy who's been a very, very capable, very good player for the Miami Heat now for 2 seasons. I know he's not playing unbelievably well this year. The efficiency's a little bit down from the field, but still very, very skilled player, capable, versatile defender, can shoot the ball well, doesn't make a ton of mistakes, and knows how to play basketball the right way at a very high level. Kind of does everything pretty well. I think he's a useful role player, and I think he's probably the best player available at this point, although you could make an argument for a couple other guys. But I think the Mavs would take Jaime Jaquez at number 12 because there's not really another big who's like, oh yeah, that's the guy in this draft. Realistically, outside of that, number 13 was the Raptors. They took Grady Dick. Obviously wouldn't have the opportunity to take him anymore. Realistically, I think another team that would go Asar Thompson realistically fills the mold of what the Raptors used to absolutely love, which is your big wings who are super versatile, kind of do it all type guys like OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. Scotty Barnes still obviously who's there as well, but they used to have like a glut of those guys. Now they don't really have as many of them. Think Asar, yes, the shooting was questionable as a rookie. The talent is very much there. He has elite potential, and the Raptors again are in a situation where they're rebuilding and trying to develop talent. Asar would fit well in that team without a ton of expectations. I like that pick at number 13. And then at number 14, the final draft choice in the lottery, the Pelicans originally took Jordan Hawkins, who I actually think is a very good shooter and a very solid pick in his own right. I'm not totally sure what they would do with this pick given another opportunity. And it's a tough spot because realistically, all the best players in the draft at this point are all gone. You know what I mean? There's nobody who really jumps off the page. It's like, oh yeah, that's the guy who they would take at this point in the draft. Realistically, to me, I think they would probably take a gamble on the talent of Cam Whitmore or consider taking Jordan Hawkins again. It really depends on how you feel about Cam Whitmore after a up and down rookie season, but still a lot of good, and then a really rough second year to start anyway. Jordan Hawkins, really, really good shooter. I know the shooting hasn't been quite as good this year, though, but in college, he was an exceptionally elite shooter, and I think he's going to wind up being a super elite shooter in the NBA as well. Pretty high-level scorer and a good player nonetheless for the Pelicans, especially on the offensive end of the court. It's a tough spot. It's a little bit of a challenging pick, but I think they'd probably still go with their guy and take Jordan Hawkins at number 14. And that closes out the lottery. Wemby, Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson, Bilal Coulibaly, Grady Dick, Anthony Black, Derek Lively, Brandon Pajemski, Scoot, Cason Wallace, Jarris Walker, Jaime Jaquez, Asar, and Jordan Hawkins round out the lottery. I'm sure this is going to be an interesting one because I think y'all are going to look at some of these picks and go, wow, that's not what I expected to hear, but it's just my opinion. And I think it is a pretty good redraft of the 2023 draft. I'd love to hear y'all's opinions in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.